limiting progress, including Hamas fighters still in tunnels beyond the yellow line, where Israeli forces pulled back after the October ceasefire. Qatar, the United States, and Egypt brokered the truce that paused 2 years of fighting under the first phase. Hamas was expected to return all remaining hostages, but 2 bodies are still missing. Qatar says the devastation in Gaza has slowed recovery efforts, but adds that this should not block political progress. The second phase, backed by the United Nations, calls for Israeli withdrawal, a temporary Gaza authority, and an international stabilization force. Hamas is also expected to disarm, a condition it continues to reject. Let's listen in.
It's a miracle that we have gotten to this point. We only have one body left to hand over. As we have always said, the logistical situation in Gaza would certainly make it difficult to reach this result, but we have reached this result right now, and I think, as we have stated, that this should never have been, a hamper in front of moving to stage 2, and we think that we are working very closely, of course, and we think that we should be pushing the parties to stage 2 very.
Now we move on to our next news. A funeral was held today in Gaza's Khan Yunis for freelance journalist and drone photographer Mahmoud Wadi, killed in an Israeli strike. Gaza officials say another journalist was also wounded. Let's listen in to their family members.
كأب أنا لقيته بصاعقة يعني بزلزال في البيت في خيمة أنا عايش طارت الخيمة لما طار ابني انقصف قصفة مش طبيعية وما كناش نتوقعها في يوم زي هيك.
اليوم تلقينا خبر استشهاده بعد أثناء عمله كصحفي أعزل معه هالكاميرا ولسه يعني منطقة خضراء كان ماشي غدروه بالصاروخ واستشهد حسبي الله.
Meanwhile, violence has eased since the October 10th ceasefire, but Israeli strikes and demolitions continue. Gaza's health authorities say at least 357 Palestinians have been killed since the truce began. Now moving on to next news, the United Nations have expressed grave concerns over the growing number of civilians fleeing violence in northern Mozambique. According to the UN Refugee Agency, nearly 3 million people have been displaced in recent months due to a jihadist insurgency in the Cabo Delgado province, which has already claimed over 6,200 lives. The violence has spread to neighboring Nampula province, forcing almost 1 million people to flee in just the past 2 weeks. UNHCR representative Javier Creech warned that the actual number of the displaced could be even higher, with many unregistered cases. He described the situation as dire, with humanitarian aid efforts struggling to keep up with intensifying attacks. The UN has called for urgent international support to address what it described as very challenging needs in the region. Let's listen in.
Over the last 3 months, is a minimum of 287,000. But I would say this figure is only the people who have been registered and who have gone to IDP sites. Many more have gone to some families, have not been identified, others fled towards urban centers. And last but not least, some are still hidden in the bush. So I think we can talk approximately of a minimum of 300,000 displaced since July.
Now we move on to our next news. Guinea-Bissau's Electoral Commission says it cannot finalize the November 23rd presidential election after armed men seized ballots, vote tallies, and destroyed servers storing the results. Army officers took power on November 26th, a day before results were due, declaring a new military command to run the country. President Umaro Sissoco Embalo has said that he was removed from office, while security sources report he's being held at the Army Chief of Staff's headquarters. His main challenger, Fernando Diaz, says that he is safe after an attempted detention, and claims the situation is a staged coup linked to his projected victory. Another political figure, Former Prime Minister Domingos Simoes Pereira has reportedly been detained. The African Union and ECOWAS have expressed deep concern and are calling for the release of electoral officials. The situation adds to years of instability in the country, a known trafficking hub, and it remains unclear how much control the military holds nationwide. Let's listen into Deputy Executive Secretary Guinea-Bissau's National Electoral Commission has shared.
A CNE reafirmou a missão da CEDEAO da total impossibilidade de concluir o processo eleitoral de 23 de novembro de 2025 e consequente anúncio dos resultados provisórios, por não ter na sua posse nenhuma ata de apuramento regional.
Now we move on to Europe. Pope Leo has wrapped up his 3-day visit to Lebanon with the